How's the Oklahoma Sooners offensive line rotation going to be? What else are they going to do at running back? We discussed a little bit of that already. Got a few fan questions that we'll discuss coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Once again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there tuning in, subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Got a few fan questions to go through on today's episode of Locked On Sooners. We put it out there. You responded with some great questions. And we're going to start with this one from @Jesse Cox video on YouTube. He says, if there's an inevitable loss along the way, and let me preface this by saying Jesse believes that every game is winnable. I just had so many characters in which I could fit the question. So if there's an inevitable loss along the way, which one would be the most forgivable in terms of playoff hopes, SEC standing, and national perception?
Most forgiving, I hate to say it, John, it's Texas. That will be the one that will be the most forgiving. Why? Because of where they're ranked right now. They're very high on the national people's minds. And if you make that a very close game, that could be one that could be leveraged on your side. Be like, hey, that was a toss-up. There's a chance Oklahoma could have won that game. And so because of that, that will be the one that would probably be the most forgiving out of all of them. In my personal opinion, it's got to be Texas.
If Texas is undefeated going into the Red River Showdown and still the number one team in the nation, I'll say yes. If Texas loses to Ohio State and Florida and is 3-2, like is the worst case scenario for Texas going into the Red River Showdown, I think it's still a forgivable loss if you lose it because it's a rivalry game and everybody knows it's a coin flip regardless of who the favorite and who the underdog is. I'm just not sure that it would be seen in the same light as losing on the road in Tuscaloosa to Alabama. Like if you lose on the road in Tuscaloosa, Bryant-Denny Stadium to Alabama, I think that one is also very forgivable because it's on the road in Tuscaloosa against Alabama.
Let me ask you this then, John. How far do you think Texas could potentially fall if they lose to Ohio State close and then lose to Florida close, as both of those are road games?
I mean, I think they'd still be a top 15 team. They'd be the best 3-win or 2-loss team in the nation probably still, just because, again, you're talking about Ohio State, the defending national champion, a team that's number 2 in the coaches poll, number 3 in the AP, and a Florida team that's probably top 15 in both spots or top 20 at least in both spots. So I don't think Texas would fall too far, but they would certainly not be considered the number 1 team in the nation at that point.
That's a fair point. I think that is very fair. And so that's the one thing I ask is, and why I throw them as the most forgivable, because I think that the media, with the perception of them and how high they are, they're going to find a way to try to keep them top 10. And there's a good chance that they can have 2 losses and they'll still be top 10 as Florida flies up. Hey, it all depends on how close those games are between them and Ohio State and them against Florida. If they're close losses, like a field goal or less, I expect them to be at no lower than 10. And then that could be a forgivable loss for Oklahoma if they loses it. Hopefully Oklahoma does not lose it. Hopefully they win it. But I think that's the one.
Well, I think for Oklahoma, they've got multiple forgivable losses on their schedule. Like they can go 10-2 and still make the playoff.
That's true.
A lot of people seem to think they can go 9-3 and still make the playoff. It depends on who those 3 losses are. If you're losing to Texas, who could be the number 1 team in the nation. If you lose to Alabama, who could be a top 5 team by the time Oklahoma plays them. If you lose on the road in South Carolina to a team with one of the hottest and most talked about quarterbacks in college football, okay, maybe that's 3 forgivable losses and you could be in the playoff discussion. If you lose to what could be an unranked Ole Miss team, maybe not. If you lose to Auburn, no, not forgivable. If you lose, I think even if you lose on the road to Tennessee, I think the committee would hold that against you because I don't think that they're going to be considered the same type of Tennessee team we've seen in recent years.
That's true. That's the thing that struggles for Tennessee is because of all of the turmoil or turnover on that offensive side of the ball and the questions that people have on them. I don't think their defense is going to be, I think their defense is going to be really good still. Even without James Pierce, it's just more so the offense is where most of my questions come for Tennessee. But I think you're right. I mean, that game would be, I know Auburn would be frowned upon regardless of how Auburn finishes this year. Nobody has belief in Hugh Freeze. I think that the Ole Miss game could potentially be frowned upon because it's at home. Same thing with Auburn. Those are home games.
And Missouri.
You should lose them. Same thing with Missouri. You shouldn't be losing those home games. So those are some bigger ones. Honestly, I think the only home game you would get forgiven is LSU. I don't even think the Michigan game will be considered a forgivable loss at home that early in the season because you're most likely going against a true freshman quarterback. Ain't no excuse to not win that game.
Yeah, I think you're right on point there. The LSU game to me is the only one that if you're going to forgive Oklahoma for losing a home game, that's the one that stands out. You got to beat Ole Miss at home. You got to beat Auburn at home. You got to beat Missouri. Got to beat Missouri at home. You cannot lose
back-to-back home games too. So yeah.
Okay, when I was talking with John Miller from Locked On Mizzou earlier this week, we discovered that the last time that Oklahoma lost at home to Missouri was 1966. That was also the last time they'd lost to Missouri in back-to-back seasons.
Perfect. Let's not repeat that.
We're not going to repeat history. We're not going to create history. All right, another question. This one comes from @Steve O'Rollo. He says, with the depth we have at O-line this year, do you guys think there will be a lot more rotation to keep guys healthy? If so, will that affect continuity across the line? He went on to discuss the communication and how chemistry is important with offensive line play. What do you think, Jay?
I think he's got a really good point. And I think he's pointing out some very critical things to keep in mind when it comes to offensive line is that it's all about communication and chemistry, especially because you're trying to catch blitzes and all of that. You got to make sure that the guy next to you is doing what they're supposed to do. And playing on the right side is so much dramatically different than playing on the left. It's like writing left-handed to writing right-handed. And if you listen to any professional offensive linemen talk about it, just the way they talk is like it's two foreign languages. They're similar in ways. It's probably like British English and American English, right? It's same but different. Words mean different things for certain reasons. Like certain words you say there in the UK, you definitely can't say here on this program, even though it's not any type of bad word there. So yeah, it's kind of you probably understand, you're probably picking up what I'm putting down. But my point is there's a challenge in that. And I don't believe that the type of rotations we could potentially see out of Bill Bedenbaugh would actually hurt chemistry, mainly because a lot of these players have played together here in fall camp to help with some of that chemistry, and especially watching tape together. The question's going to be less about doing the rotations and more about if you're moving people into new positions, right? Like having a Jake Sexton play guard instead of playing tackle, having a Ryan Fodje move from guard to tackle or tackle to guard. I think those are the things that will be a lot more challenging for the chemistry of the offensive line, but having 10 dudes that you're willing to go play on a consistent basis, I don't think so. And I think that helps for your long-term viability in the system because in order to make deep runs in the playoffs, the healthiest team is the one that typically wins.
Yeah, I think that they're going to settle on a 5 that they like the most, but then they're also going to throw out their Ryan Fodje and Michael Fasusi at times because they want to get their feet wet. They want to see, can they hold up against a Michigan? Can they hold up against Auburn? They want to see. They want to put these guys to the test and figure out what they need to continue to work on and get better at and develop. You only do that by playing, but they're going to want to have a core 5 guys that they deploy 95% of the time, especially in these big SEC games against Illinois State and Temple, Kent State. I could see them rotating a whole lot more, and you might even see them go 3 offensive lines deep into the rotation in those games, especially against Illinois State. Like they might play 15, 20 offensive linemen in that game, just because they'll have an opportunity to get these guys experience and get these guys some run. Against Michigan, probably not going to be as much the case. You're probably going to play 7, maybe 8 guys in that game. So communication is critical and it's key, and getting everybody on the same page is super important. So I don't think in some of the bigger games we'll see that rotation go too deep, but he will want to play some guys just to give them some snaps and see how they fare, especially the guys like Fasusi and Fodje, Logan Howland, Eddie Pierre-Louis, Jake Michaela, like basically that second unit. He's going to want to see how they hold up at times against a good Michigan front.
Yeah, it's true. That's a very good point. The top 5, I think, I do believe that the best 5 are the ones that's going to play, but I do feel like it's going to be more of a challenge of figuring out who that 5 is. So you ride with 10 and have your 5 best out there and have 5 more right behind them, ready to pull them out. I think that he'll probably sub them in groups, like both right guys gone at the same time and both left guys gone at the same time. If you can control it, that feels like probably the most viable solution, or the most realistic solution to playing a lot of offensive linemen.
Or they might just do a whole hockey line change at times and just run out a whole different group, because it is so much about connectivity. You have a feel with how to combo block and then when to release off of that block in the run game. Yep. You have a feel for how to pass, the stunts and the twists between one another. There's very much a feel thing that comes with a, time spent with one another. Playing offensive lines like a marriage. It just gets better the more time you spend together. So I could totally see that. So great questions. Thank you all so much for submitting those. Again, you can submit them on Twitter at Locked On Sooners, on YouTube. We drop that graphic each week so that you can be a part of the show. We love making y'all a part of what we do here at Locked On Sooners, because we do it not just for us. We love talking ball. We do it anyway, but we do it for you, the Locked On Sooners, every day. So again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Make sure you tune in to Jay's show at Unfair Sports. Go check out the channel at Unfair Sports over on YouTube. You can read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. The show is at Locked On Sooners on all of your favorite social media platforms. But until next time, he's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. We'll talk to you then. Boomer.
Sooner. It's going to be a fun year.
Man, it's going to be so much fun. It's going to be so much more fun than last year.
Hurry.
It's going to rock.